photographer named George Lemoyne arrives in the small coastal town of Potter's Bluff. He's traveling alone, photographing the local landscapes. On the beach, he meets a friendly woman named Lisa, who offers to photograph her. George agrees, unaware of the tragic consequences. Later, he's attacked by a group of locals, suffering serious injuries. He's taken to the hospital, where he's cared for by a nurse who turns out to be the woman, Lisa. She finishes the job, and George dies. Sheriff Dan Gillis begins an investigation. He lives in Potter's Bluff with his wife, Janet, and knows almost all the locals well. He's assisted by local pathologist William Dobbs, a man with an odd personality but respected in town for his expertise. George's body is brought to the morgue, and Dobbs promises to handle it. A short time passes and a new group of travelers arrives in town. Each of them eventually dies under mysterious circumstances. The sheriff can't figure out who's behind these attacks and why the residents of this seemingly ordinary coastal town are acting increasingly suspiciously. At crime scenes, the sheriff notices one thing. Cameras always appear nearby, and someone is taking photos of the dead. Gillis begins to doubt even those he trusts. His wife Janet is also acting strangely. She's often absent, speaking in riddles, and hiding her whereabouts. The sheriff senses something strange is happening to the town. One night, he's driving on the highway and accidentally hits a man. He stops, gets out, and notices a piece of clothing and a fragment of an arm on the grill. But the strangest thing is, the man he hit suddenly gets up and runs away as if nothing happened. The sheriff is at a loss. He takes a small tissue sample from the car and takes it to the doctor. The doctor reports that the tissue has long been dead and couldn't have come from a living person. Gillis realizes that something is happening in Potter's Bluff that defies logic. He begins checking the background of Coroner Dobbs and learns that he once worked as the chief pathologist in another town but was fired after strange experiments in the morgue. From that moment on, Gillis begins to suspect that Dobbs is somehow connected to what's happening. The sheriff arrives at the morgue and demands an explanation. Dobbs calmly explains that he has developed a special technique that allows the dead to return to a semblance of life. He considers it art and says that almost all the residents of Potter's Bluff are the very people he once reanimated. He sees himself as an artist and the bodies as his material. For him, these people are like his own creations, kept alive by his will. Gillis is shocked. He tries to figure out if his wife, Janet, is among these reanimated figures. At that moment, she indeed appears in the morgue. The sheriff is desperate and unsure what to do. He uses his gun, and Janet is wounded. Dobbs is also shocked. Gillis follows Janet to the cemetery. There she asks him to leave her with the other townspeople. He complies, then sees the residents of Potter's Bluff gather around, as if participating in a farewell ceremony. Afterwards, Gillis returns to the morgue to sort things out. There he sees Dobbs sitting at the table again, as if nothing had happened. Dobbs shows him a film reel that captures something incredible. It turns out that Gillis himself was also part of his experiments. He sees Janet attacking him, surrounded by the townspeople and Dobbs. Gillis looks at his hands and notices that they are beginning to change. The skin is no longer its usual appearance. Dobbs calmly says he can fix it if Gillis allows it.